Interpersonal skills. For communication to happen, two or more people must be involved. One person expresses his message through words, spoken or written, signs, signals, facial and body expressions, or even silence. The other person uses her senses, mostly sight and hearing, to gather aspects of the message. It is important to consider how you might communicate your message to an audience and what possible barriers to communication there might be. Methods. Verbal exchange work for most people, but those who cannot speak may sign a message, while someone who is deaf might rely on lip reading. The recognised sign system also acts as an aid for communication with the deaf. Techniques and cues. To express emotional in verbal communication, some change of tone is needed. A raised voice can indicate anger or impatience. A lower voice can show fear or insecurity. In face-to-face discussions, the tone of the voice may be accompanied by some body language. A fist being thumped on the table conveys more force than hands that are held together as if in prayer or hanging immediately at the speaker's side. Folded arms crossed at the chest may show indifference or obstinacy. Someone who is unsighted or at the end of a telephone line doesn't have the extra dimension that body language offers during face-to-face communication. This person can still hear pauses though and will identify any emotion conveyed through intonation. Positive language. The word yes is a positive response to a question. Your facial expressions, such as a smile, can also convey a positive reaction. Nodding your head or leaning forward towards the speaker conveys your agreement or willingness to listen to what is being said. Negative language. Cutting in while another person is speaking depends upon how you do it. Can convey enthusiasm or may be seen as antagonistic. Finishing other people's sentences can be irritating and may indicate insensitivity on your part. If you decide not to react at all and remain impassive, this also communicates a clear negative message to the speaker. You are bored and have no intentions of listening. Body language that indicates a negative attitude can act as a barrier to communication. For example, you are unlikely to persuade someone to open up and communicate with you frankly if you use closed body language and an aggressive stance. Active engagement. Communication doesn't just happen when you are speaking. You can also communicate in several ways while the other person speaks. By paying attention and reacting to what the other person is saying. For example, with a nod or a frown, you are communicating that you hear what is being said and that you are taking note. Once the other person has finished speaking, they may signal that you are expected to respond. They might end with the question such as, "Don't you agree?" Or they may use body language to indicate that it is your turn to contribute to the conversation by turning their body or inclining their head towards you. You can confirm your understanding of what has just been said by summarizing it, and before going to make your own comments. You might also paraphrase what has been agreed between you. Some key terms. Summarize. To sum up the most important points of a communication. Paraphrase. To say again but using different words. Open question. A question that could be answered in a variety of unanticipated ways. Close question. A question that expects a limited range of answers such as yes, no. Barriers to communication. To communicate effectively, you need to prevent or reduce the effect of communication barriers as much as possible. For example, for an audience to hear you, your voice should be clear and loud enough, without any distortion or interference. Therefore, it is important not to position a mouthpiece of a telephone under your chin, and in direct communication, you should face your audience. Background noise should not be underestimated. Even a slight continuous noise, such as the humming of an air conditioning unit or the ticking of a clock, can distract an audience. Distractions such as someone walking into a meeting late or leaving unexpectedly, the arrival of the tea trolley, or a mobile phone bleeping can interrupt the flow of thought of an audience and, Momentarily, they could stop listening to you. As soon as this happens, communication will falter and you, as the speaker, may feel the need to repeat part of the message. Lack of concentration from your audience will also hinder communication. It's important to maintain concentration levels despite any distractions. The length of the conversation or communication is important. The recipient can only take so much information in at a time, and anything beyond that is counterproductive. For example, a short verbal rebuke might prove useful, but the recipient is likely to lose concentration if this turns out into a lecture on behaviour. This could hold true for written communication. If you convey your message on one page of A4, then do so. The recipient of a 2-page letter will have a lower concentration level when they turn the page. Types of question. Communications is not just two people talking in turn. There needs to be a link between the people, and questions can help to create such a link. An open question is an invitation to the other person to pick up on a conversation and take control. For example, if you asked, "How are you today?" there are a multitude of possible responses. The conventional response is, "I'm fine, thanks. How are you?" whether or not this is true. During a debate on an issue, a constructive open question might be, "What do you think about this?" This invites the other person to express their views. Closed questions are expressed in such a way that the options for reply are limited, perhaps only a yes or no. "Would you like a cup of tea?" is a closed question. The question can be made less specific. "Would you like something to drink?" But this may still result in a yes or no answer. To find out exactly what is required, you would need to follow up question. "What would you like to drink?" Either form of question is acceptable during most conversations. With open questions, you may not find out what you want to know. In this case, you will need to follow up with additional questions, called probing questions, to extract the information you want. In personal conversations, such questions might be considered as unacceptable because they delve too deeply into a person's private space. In some circumstances, it may be effective to repeat the questions, but this may be considered as aggressive or impolite. Even closed questions can be threatening if used during an argument. "You agree with me, don't you?" expects a yes or no answer and forces the other person to declare his or her position. A cautious response that shows diplomacy might be yes and no, followed by some explanation about the point of agreement or disagreement. Speed of response. Questions can be answered in a number of ways: quickly and maybe with passion, slowly and what looks like consideration of all the issues, sometimes in between or not at all. Answering a question with a question is a delay tactic that is often used in discussions. Repeating the question back to the questionnaire is another delaying tactic that sometimes works.